All right, you're listening to On Deck, presented by Amazing MedZone. I'm your boy, Phil from Shirley, with my boy, Drew Minotti 82. What up, Drew?
What's happening, Philly? What's going on, people?
Yeah, in honor of Sam Rosen, the New York Rangers announcer, saying this is going to be his last season, we were talking like, hey, let's go over our top five announcers in New York history in our time. It could be anybody. Everyone's list is going to be different because you're going to have the people that you listen to, and obviously we're going to have guys off this list that like I don't have Marv on my list, and I feel like he's a guy where realistically all time, he's got to be on there. But I'm going to start it with my number five. And he's a guy who I listened to my whole life. Started out as a Mets radio announcer, and now he's the Mets TV guy. I think he's the best in the business, and that's Gary Cohen. I think that he's the best baseball guy. I don't know if it's just my homer likeness to it. I know there's a lot of other guys that are really good, but you know that broadcast team as a whole, you could put there up in the top three guaranteed. But for me, I just think Gary's amazing. A lifelong Met fan, knows so much about it. He always blows my mind when he just comes up with these things that he knows. But Gary Cohen, my number five.
Yeah, man, we're spoiled. We have a nice broadcast. Um, I'm gonna go with the radio guy, Howie Rose. Right, he's my number five. Another guy, like you said, he's in the same cut from the same cloth as Gary. He's like one of those just lifelong Met fans who is just great to listen to on the radio. Like sometimes when I'm listening on the radio, I almost rather listen to him. Sometimes, I'd rather listen to him like on an Apple broadcast or like a Prime broadcast. Like I'll just put the radio on because he's so entertaining. He knows so much about the game. He holds your attention, big time on the radio, which is like so impressive. You're not watching anything, you're just listening to him, and he can call a game, better than most people who are on TV. So by far, my number five, Howie Rose, best broadcaster in New York.
Love it. Love it. My number four, he's on my list because this guy could do any sport. This guy could do football. This guy could do hockey. This guy could do baseball. And this guy could do basketball. And that's Kenny Albert. I think Kenny Albert's very underrated. He's probably going to be the guy that replaces Sam Rosen too and is the Rangers announcer. But he's been announcing in New York for a long time. And like I said, the guy can do every sport. And to me, he's one of the best. He's probably in Fox's top three team. It used to be Kenny, Moose, and Goose. That was one of my favorites. But to me, Kenny Albert, number four, could have been higher. The guy can do any sport, and not anybody else on my list. There's not another guy I have on my list that you could say that about. So Kenny Albert, number four.
Yeah, talented. I mean, talk about a family tree there.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like the Buffers, Michael Buffer and his brother doing the ring announcing. It's like the same thing with the Albert brothers. My number four is an ex-Nick, Walt Frazier. Listening to him call a game it's entertaining. He's goofy, he's genuine, loves the Knicks, loves New York. His, bright blazers he's always wearing, his crazy outfits, and just his vocabulary. Like he's always trying to put these like crazy words in there, dishing and swishing, like, all these like he knows how to use the English language, and he's just fun to listen to. He makes a great team with Mike Breen, and like it's just listening to those guys. It makes watching a Knick game so much more pleasurable. And the fact that he was a stud, he was such a good ball player. And I feel like he's so modest, like they talk about when he played, and he just like plays up like it's no big deal. So yeah, number four for me is Walt Frazier.
Love it. Love Clyde. It actually goes right into my number three. His teammate, his partner, that's Mike Bream. I think Mike Bream is arguably the best basketball announcer. I mean, the fact that he is basically the voice of the NBA now. He's took over from Marv. We've been very spoiled, like you said, to go from Marv to him. I know there was another guys in between, but realistically, he is the voice of the NBA now. You hear that three and him just, making that call bang. It's one of the biggest things. So I know he really only does basketball now, but he's the biggest, so he's got to be on my list. Number three, Mike Bream.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. My number three is your number five, Gary. Um, And like you said before, like I feel like when I made this list, I was just putting five guys on there that all could be number one, right? Like I feel like any of these guys on my list could be number one. I really didn't want to rank these guys because I felt like putting Gary third on my list was pretty crazy just because I just love Gary Cohen. Like he's just so fun to listen to. The relationship he has with Keith and Ron is just so cool. Um, Again, we're so spoiled. I know people talk about Bob Murphy. I wasn't really, listening to Bob Murphy or watching Bob Murphy. Maybe when I was like a baby. But yeah, Gary Cohen, I mean, he's going to go on forever. Like,
Mhm.
he's still young. Um, and you could just tell, like, he's just, above all, he's a fan. He just sounds like it's like a little kid sitting in the booth, and it's like you could tell this was like his dream job.
Yep.
And it's just so cool. It's so cool. Yeah, Gary Cohen, number three for me, New York announcer.
Love it. Love it. I know it was so tough for me to put him five. And my number two right now is on your list as well, and that's Howie Rose. Howie's just so good. I mean, the guy could do hockey as well. The voice of the Islanders for a long time. He was the voice of the Rangers too a while ago, doing some radio, I believe. The guy can do everything. Like I said, Howie is really good. Um, Probably he could have been my number one. Like I really was debating with that just because of how good he is. Love listening to him on the radio. The man has a face for radio, though. I will say that. But I do love Howie Rose. Got to be my number two. Great at baseball, great at hockey. That's why he's on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like on this list too, like catchphrases are great. Like put in the books is like such a cool phrase. Um, yeah, and to piggyback on that, my number two is Mr. Bang, Mike Breen. He's just a class act. His voice is just so silky smooth, like the way he talks, the way he like brings everybody into the conversation. Like you said, I mean, now he's not just doing Nick games, he's doing the national broadcasts, and you still like feel like he is just a fan. I mean, I feel like some guys who do national broadcasts, it doesn't translate the same as like a homer, someone who's like a homer. But you couldn't tell. Like with Mike Breen, he just seems like he loves everybody. He's so good at what he does. Um, my only knock on him is he's good friends with Michael Kay. I know they went to college there. Uh, yeah, I mean that guy's a mess, but he's definitely not top 10, Michael Kay. But yeah, no, Mike Breen, my number two, easily, hands down.
Love it. Love it. My number one is the guy where we started this list because of, and that's Sam Rosen. I love the guy so much. The voice of the Rangers my whole life. Talk about catchphrases. This one will last a lifetime. Unfortunately, it feels like it has lasted a lifetime and seems like we're not going to win again. But also, Sam being on my list is not just because of his Rangers work, also a great football announcer as well. Announcing for over, like I said, over 30 years 40 years with the Rangers. Got to be on my list. Number one, Sam Rosen. Love you.
Yeah, yeah. I know this list was hard. At one point, you and I were talking about making a top 10, just because
Mm,
like I left off Bob Murphy, I left off John Sterling. Like, I mean, John Sterling, legend. Like, as much as I don't like the Yankees, like
mm,
listening to him and his fun calls, his little nicknames he has for people. You know, like I said, I don't love the Yankees, but listening to John Sterling is great. My number one's got to be Marv Albert. Like, I mean, just listening to him growing up, those '90s Knicks, like
mm.
he was just so fun to listen to. Um, he's just so talented. I know he got into a little bit of trouble at one point, but then came back and everything was cool. I just feel like I couldn't not have him on my list. Marv Albert is a legend. Easily my number one. Just fun to listen to. Like I said, again, that voice. So, once you hear that
Yeah.
voice, you know it's his. Yeah. So, uh, yeah, my number one New York announcer could have been a lot of guys. Could have been any of my guys on the list at number one, but Marv Albert's my number one.
No, I love it. I love it. And like you said, everyone's going to have their different lists of who they listen to. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. I mean, you got guys like old school Phil Rizzuto. You know what I mean? The character that he is, the clips that you hear, the guy was like basically getting drunk on the radio. So there's so many different guys. And yeah, we want to hear your lists. We want to see your list in the comments. Thank you for listening. This has always been great. I feel like this was really tough, man.
Yeah, this wasn't easy. I mean, we were going to do a national broadcast, which is just as tough. We
Yeah.
limited work, and it wasn't easy. We're spoiled. We definitely have great announcers.
All right, we'll be back with more. Let's see if I could end this well.
Let's go, Mets. Let's go.